Oh, there we go. Okay. We're working now. Technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Alright, you ready? Okay, well, being 7 o'clock, I'd like to call this regular town board meeting to order. Fire exits are out the door and to the left. Should they be blocked, out the door and to the right. There's an AED located on the wall across the hall, should that be necessary. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence for the deceased residents of the town of Hamlin. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Russo, would you be so kind as to lead us in an invocation?
Gladly. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for tonight, Lord. Thank you for the needed rain. Thank you for this meeting. Thank you for these individuals once again that give of their time and life. And Lord, I pray that you'd give them wisdom as they make decisions. God, thank you for the place that we live. And God, again, God, I pray that just tonight would be pleasing to you. And we pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Please call the roll.
Baxter.
Here.
Bockel. Probert.
Here.
Yeager.
Here.
Peters.
Here. We now come to the public forum portion of the meeting. This is a portion of the meeting where the public gets to address the board. Generally have a sign-in sheet if somebody wants to address the board. Please keep your comments to the entire board, not one individual specifically. Please keep your comments, if you can, to 3 minutes or less. If you want your comments to be entered verbatim to the minutes of the meeting, you'll have to give a copy to the town clerk. This is generally not a question and answer period, but that doesn't preclude us from doing so. I have Joel Whalen from 19 Hillcrest Drive. You're on first.
Where are we supposed to go, here or just?
Yeah, stay
Okay.
right there,
Well,
Ryan.
Before I do, I just wanted to show the board here. I'm here today for the flooding problem on 19 Hillcrest Drive. I was here 2.5 years ago. I'm sure some of you remember me. The only member that's not here is Mr. Rose. He's retired now. This is my property. Okay. The edge of that property borders on 19 and 21. This is one day's water. This one. One day. Okay. Okay. I came here 2.5 years ago. I was honest and open about it. I asked for help from the town board. I thought I had the town's ear. I thought you people agreed to help me. But now I'm not the only one. You have other people on the street with this flooding problem. The zone or the tracking there was never properly monitored. Okay, I get that. You guys made up for it, but you said you'd help. 2.5 years later, nothing. I was told I was on a list. Nothing. Now we're into the third season. Nothing. Why? You said you'd help. This isn't just for me. The proper way to do this would have been to treat me and my neighbors equally as the other people to the west of me were treated. They had their properties improved by this town. That's a fact. Undeniable. So I'm asking for the same treatment as my neighbors got. I'm not asking you to pay for anything, but I'm asking you for the same treatment. I'm a taxpayer, and I think I'm entitled to it. You promised to help. 3 years later, I got to chase people down, get the him, the hot, and no answer. Well, the town don't want to be involved. Involved? You're already involved. Those are your jobs. You're involved. You said you took those jobs. You're involved to help people. I came with a legitimate flood problem. It's still today. This isn't 25 years ago water. This is today's water. My neighbors have the same problem. And theirs is worse. There's a young couple. They're young kids. Take a look at their property. They got a photo of it too. Theirs is worse than mine. The solution to this, and I'm suggesting to this, and I'm hoping you take a vote here to recommend it, review it, and then get back to us, is to put the same line that you put in for our neighbors to fix the problem. A drainage line from 19 all the way down to the drain here. The problem that the town has with these developments is that this is your plan, approved, you, the state, the county, whatever, it's your plan. The plan's problem is that after it's implemented, signed off, nobody comes back to see if it works. It's not working. It hasn't worked in 30 years. Help us, fix it, and treat us fairly. By not doing anything, you're treating us unfairly, and you promise to help. The Pledge of Allegiance there says equal justice. Where's my justice? Where's my equal treatment? You want to be treated with courtesy, respect, congeniality. Where's mine after you promise to help and walk away? I didn't ask you to pay for a thing. I said I'd contribute and I'd help to get the problem resolved. And nothing. Did the people down there pay? I don't know. There's no record of it. So why aren't you helping? When are you going to come? I was told that I was next on the list after the sidewalk. That's 3 years ago. Am I wrong? So I'm asking for a vote by this town. There's 5 of you. It's not a dictatorship. I've come to the entire board and I'd like a vote by this board. Give us the same treatment. Nothing more and nothing less. Private squabbles are another matter. We're not talking about, it's out of too long to this and that between neighbors. But I'm asking for fair treatment. If you're not going to treat me that way, I think I have an argument. I'm being discriminated against. And so are my neighbors. If I fix my yard and bring in dirt, I'm going to flood the demarcations. That's going into those kids. Then what? This is all the town's fault. All of it. The arguments, the fight, and the floods. Failure to monitor, failure to fix it, even though it's brought time and time again. What are you going to do? Are you going to help me, or are you going to turn your back and walk away? I'm asking for a vote to get the problem fixed. Give us the same deal. That's it. The question is, are you or are you not? I got the 5 holes here that Steve dug 3 years ago. They're still there because I waited for you to come back. It's right there in the picture. That little brush is a rabbit hole when it's dry. And it's my Kong Island or whatever, Skull Island there when it's wet. What do you want me to do? I've asked for help. I've had multiple conversations with people on the board that said they'd help. They put something on it. 3 years later. 3 seasons. 3 seasons is 3 years because you can only work certain time. So what's the procedure? Can I get a vote from the board that you're going to help? The last comment says we don't want to be involved. That's your job to be involved. I don't get it. Maybe you can explain it to me.
Anything you would like to add or? This time?
The only way to fix the drainage is probably to put a drain pipe in all the way down to the east end. There's a catch basin, but that's where the water's supposed to flow, to the east end of Hillcrest. His water and everybody else is to the east of him. It's to dig up everybody's yard and probably put a drainage pipe or whatever, or dig a whole new swale or whatever, which you have to get easements and all the other stuff to do so, and it's down expense. Or hook into the pipe, which there's been a battle with the neighbor at 21 who says we're not supposed to and everything. There were other pipes that went in. Supposedly underneath town guidance 20 or more years ago. I don't know exactly.
That's okay. I understand that.
No, I understand, but those are the only 2 options is what I'm saying. To help this, there's gotta be either you can hook into that one pipe, which would take his waterway, or you gotta go all the way down to the east end of Hillcrest, starting at number 1 or whatever the address is. There's a big catch basin there, but that's where all the water, that's where all the surface water goes.
But it's not just about me anymore. I looked down the street today and these young couple here has a picture. Their yard's worse.
I'm going to show it.
Their yard's worse. I had no idea it was like that because I never looked down that far. I thought it was just me. It's selfish. But these kids got to work. They just paid a lot of tax money for that house. This is their property. Excuse me here. This is their property. One day. We've had 24 hours, one day. Theirs is worse than mine, one day. If I fix my yard and push that dirt to the DiMartino's, my water's going in there, that will make theirs worse. It'll have to happen. It's a fact. One day. And they just paid, I don't know, $200,000 for a house or more? Reduce their taxes. It's a flood property. Well, I mean, you know, do you think they'd bought that house for that price if they'd known it? Look, one day. And then Steve, I don't mean to take it up to keep it shorter because there's other people here, but you talk about putting it in and hooking up and this and that. You have to run the line of mine, and then you talk easements. The people up there did not sign an easement. I got the county copy. There's no easement there.
Correct. Therein lies the problem. There's no records. This part we did discuss. There are no records existing of that job ever being done.
Right.
There is nothing.
Well, let me ask you this.
Hold on. So if it was done in the QT, or however it was done, it wasn't done legally.
Okay. But what's the real loss on an easement? If the couple and me are willing to give that up there, you're not coming to trampling with heavy equipment every other day for the next year. You'll probably never be back. All you have to do is put in that easement that you'll notify us way ahead of schedule, let us know what's coming on with our property, and make the adjustments from there. That's all. It sounds easy. Why couldn't the other people do that?
Well, if we take a drainage easement, we probably have to go, to cover everything, we would have to cover all that side of the road, because that's where we need to probably incorporate that line that already exists there to bring it into legality. Most easements they don't require notification to the homeowner. When we need to maintain it, we need to maintain it. There is no notification. It also is up to us how we're going to take care of that and what we're going to do with it. Obviously, Steve's the highway and he does the drainage, but it may just be a ditch. It may not be what you're looking for either. That's something to work for. And
well, there lies in the rub again. If you ask for the same equal treatment, they have a snake line in there. It's the same thing, right? So what's wrong with that actual snake line matching something like that? Because they haven't had maintenance in all these years. So I don't quite understand that.
We're trying to, and I don't want to get in an argument here, but we have no record of that being done. Okay, none of us were here when that was done. I believe you may have been working on the highway at that time.
I think I was working there, but I wasn't.
But we don't have any record of it. We don't know how it was put in. We don't even know. I don't know. Did you run a camera through the thing? Do you know where it ends, where it terminates?
I know where it terminates.
Okay. So, but we don't know that it was put into spec or anything like that. So we'd be taking something that we have no idea. I don't know if it was a legal deal. I have no idea who, how, what the arrangements were, any of it. But obviously it was put in to take care of somebody without the town's assistance, other than maybe the installation. That's it. Here you go, hush up. But it wasn't put in for us to be responsible for it forever, because there was no easements done. It was not illegal. There was no legal agreements, none of that. We can do that. We can go all through that. But if they don't want to sign now because they're already, quote, taken care of, that precludes that. There's a few steps that might shoot the whole project in its foot. We can look at it. I will put it up to say, okay, take drainage easements. I probably will do it next meeting, so I have accurate numbers and addresses to put in the resolution to establish a drainage easement through there. But it may or may not be how you want it. I'm just being honest with you. We've had these issues with other areas. And quite frankly, my neighbor's yard, my yard, everybody's yard is flooded. My next door neighbor has a picture of her shed from yesterday that is in a pond.
Ours was, we brought in 9 tons.
Okay, but it's not like that every day. We had a boatload of rain in one night.
We can't mow ours gone back there until
I
July.
can't walk
Until
back
July.
there normally either. In my yard or the neighbor's yard is the same
Did
way.
you have to bring in 9-ton stone?
No, I didn't bring it,
We
no.
did.
But
Well-
the point is, we had a lot of rain and yes.
Okay,
So,
everybody gets the rain there, but you can see the difference between my yard that doesn't have that and the yards, okay, forgive me this, the town helped. I don't care how you want to slice and dice or say what hand did this, one did that. The town was involved. The old highway superintendent, there's no crew that's dispatched that he doesn't know about that's digging somewhere. Now, if you get into the technical arguments and this, that, you have to subpoena somebody, the people at 21 and say, who put it in for you, when, how, and what. I don't want to go that way. I don't want to,
No.
I don't want to egg them on. I get pictures taken of me if I do a wheelbarrow, okay? This is how this is escalated. But all the fights and arguments back there are the town's fault, okay? You say, well, it's a person that, no, it's not. This all started over the town's, first thing back when Tuco was there. Then it starts from there. Then the town favors 7 residents or 6 residents over the other people. They never looked at the whole issue. They just gave a quick fix, a Band-Aid, told me to stick it. Now, each and every one except, I don't know who's the new guy. Is it you, Joel, this new guy? Okay, Joel, you weren't here. But each and every one of you said what that person said to me, which was Mr. Rose. I didn't want to cause him embarrassment because you said, don't do those things. Don't do this thing. Okay, well, I didn't mention his name. I told Steve that. And I told you that in a personal conversation when you were driving, in the last conversation we had. I said, I don't want to cause that man any problems. I understand. But it was him that was standing there. He's in charge of it. The town's hand is in on it. Period. How do you do anything else? It doesn't matter what hand rolled it in and what hand dug it. The town improved my neighbors. Do the same for us.
okay, well, like I said, I will do this. I will.
But here's
put a
my,
I'm telling you, I'm agreeing with you.
okay.
I will put a resolution together to form a drainage district along there, and let me get that accurate because.
Well, this helps you make up your thing here. The photo that I showed you here, the first photo here, that's what improved their lots, okay? That worked well for them by putting that snake in there. It works wonderful, whether it's the exact size or not to handle the water because they got tons of water. You need the right size, yes. But that type of snake works. You can look at it. It looks like home and garden version. Doesn't it? I mean, honestly, it does. There's no standing water up there whatsoever, with just that line in there.
And we're right next to each other.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm asking. Treat us fairly, right? I don't have anything personal against you or any board member. Mr. Baxter, he's a Democrat. I didn't vote for him, but I don't hate the guy. Okay? I like Steve. He's good with a shovel. I waited for him. But don't you agree 3 years is enough?
Yeah, that's fine. We will do it.
Correct you, I'm not a Democrat.
You've been to my house. Did I turn you away? No, I didn't give you a cup of coffee. Okay. Stop by. I'll give you a cup of coffee. You're not a Democrat?
No, I ran as a
You wish you
libertarian.
are? Oh. I still like you. It doesn't.
That's all right, I still like you too.
Just help us out and help these poor kids back there. I'm telling you.
Okay, well, we'll proceed. We will. And like I said, let me get the accurate information for the resolution because I'm not going to do that off the cuff. I want it to be done. That's the problem. It was not done correctly. It puts the burden on everybody here that wasn't here. Nobody has any clue. It puts the burden on the town that none of us knew about. Nobody knew about.
Right. Well, I don't want to get into the accusations.
So we're going to try. We will try to correct it, but we're going to do it the right way, and it's going to be the legal way all the way along.
Okay.
So.
What I'm asking is that snake works wonderful. So don't just rule that out and give me stone in the ditch or something like that. That snake, the proper snake covered with the silk cloth and this in the right size works wonders. And that picture attests to it. Okay?
The yards are
So,
beautiful along there.
and that would be, I'm just making a record, that would be the right way to do it.
Very
Okay?
effective.
Very effective. Very effective.
Okay, well, one step at a time. Let's
But
get
don't
the
go,
legal authority to actually do something.
don't go west there to 21 there. It'll work itself out. God will have his hand in one way or there. I don't want to argue and fight with him anymore. I'm done with that. I'm done with it. I'm done with it.
Okay.
Okay, so just help us out. I don't have any problem after that.
Now, if you form a drainage district on there, that's similar to water or sewer, do you need 51% of the people whose yard is going to be involved with to be okay?
It may be, or we can, I don't know if we can do a number of individual easements along there. We'll have to investigate, see what's the best way to go about it. Because if we do a district, then we would have to have that. We would also have to have everybody's. And we probably have to do, it would seem logical to do the entire subdivision versus the little piece.
All right, that's what, I'm just trying to tell what we can do and get this solved once and for all.
So people have to take.
I thought this was already taken care of, just so you know. All right, I hadn't heard from you. This is the first I'm hearing about since you last came here, so forgive me, I don't know why, but that's beside the point. But I did think this, I think some of us other ones thought this was taken care of.
Me too.
So,
Me too.
Okay. Does anyone else wish to address the board? All right, well, seeing as no one else wishes to address the board, we will close the public forum portion of the meeting and move forward to the business portion of the meeting. Weston Town Board resolution to approve the regular town board meeting minutes of March 24th, 2021.
so moved.
Baxter,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
Probert,
Yes.
Jaeger,
Yeah.
Peters.
Yes. Weston Town Board resolution to approve the payment of bills from their respective funds.
Second.
Baxter,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
Probert,
Yes.
Jaeger,
Yeah.
Peters.
Yes. Supervisor's monthly report. Filed. Do you have any other regular business resolution wise that need to be done this evening?
No, sir, not this evening. Go ahead, Steve.
All right, sounds good. A few things to discuss and go over. Listen to the webinar. Obviously, I'm sure everyone's aware that the governor's budget was signed. It includes legalization of marijuana. Association of Towns had a webinar on that. Did you get on that? Yourself? Did you? Okay, Joe. Interesting. We don't have a whole lot that we can do with it. Basically, all we can do is opt out of allowing dispensaries and on-site consumption. Those are two different classifications, and they would be two different licenses. But other than that, we don't have anything we can do about it. So I thought I would just throw it out. At this point, I did get I don't know if you got the stuff from the Association of Towns, but there's a whole packet. When we have our zoning board workshop, I figured I'd put that together for everybody. But, has a sample law to opt out. I talked to other towns, specifically Clarkson, Sweden, and Kendall, and then talked to Parma about it. Nobody's real enthused about the idea of having a retail establishment at this point. Excuse me, probably the closest at this point. I have not talked to the village of Rockwell, but I have to imagine if they will not opt out, they will allow it in certain areas. Now we can, if the consensus is to allow it, then we can control where it goes with our zoning regulations. One of the things that I thought was interesting, we had a supervisors meeting, which was after the Association of Towns meeting, and so this was a topic with them. I mean, several of the towns are going to just not opt out. But one of the things when we was talking about the zoning and where they were allowing it, and what I think I would have you look at perhaps, is Brighton has included vape sales already in where they allow it. It sounded to me like Bill, it was a fairly new zoning regulation. I don't know much about it, but that was kind of a side note. But it allowed a 5-year grandfathering of existing locations, and then after that, sunsetted, and then it was is only allowed in certain areas, which is another interesting, just to decide, something to think about for our going forward, to control where things can be. You can also control time, all place, hours, et cetera. There's certain things, locations, et cetera. So I just figured I'd throw it out there for everybody to think about. Maybe talk to your people that live nearby, see what anybody thinks in your neighborhoods.
I was gonna say, in the meeting, they suggested, having like a
Public forum.
public gathering to just get some input from what residents would really want. Like, I don't
Just
have a
to take
good
the
sense
temperature.
of whether, people would be pro or, against this here in Hamlin. So just to kind of take an informal poll and get people's opinions from all different areas of the town.
Yeah, yeah.
So I didn't know if I was gonna say if we could do that, like advertise it for a zoning workshop night, or if it would be something totally separate that we
I think it would probably be best to keep that as a separate public forum. It's not a public hearing, it would be strictly a public forum roundtable. No decisions would be made, and it would, that, so. But I don't know that I want to put it in with a workshop type atmosphere, because technically workshops are open to the public, but they are not supposed to speak. They can observe, but they aren't supposed to speak. So, I know we've had people there that have talked, but it's up to us. If you get a big thing like this, it may become unwieldy. I know I've talked to a few of my neighbors, not all of them, but the ones that I know that I've talked to are not real interested in a dispensary or on site either one. But I don't want to make any unilateral decisions either. I just take some input from everybody so that we can go forward with that. The main caveat is that if you're going to opt out, the law has to be in place this calendar year.
That was the next question, that's how soon.
It has to be
We have to act
done
on that.
this calendar year. If you don't do it this calendar year, then you don't
Cannot
do
go.
it. Period. So,
But my other question too, for looking at it from all angles, would be, there's that, the obvious tax money the town would get. There's that 4% that gets chopped up, you get a certain cut,
75%.
But, so I guess I don't know anything about like what that's gonna look like, because I don't know what the money's coming in.
I don't know that anybody does. It's not like you can
So-
call up your local guy and say, hey, what's your,
I don't think
yearly intake?
I don't think Hamlin's big enough to support it. I mean, I think you'd have to have a town big enough, or a close to a city or something to support it. Because the licensing is real expensive for a dispensary. I don't think we would have enough business in the town of Hamlin. Rockport maybe with as the center point for all the towns around us. But, like, I don't think the kid on the corner is gonna get $200,000 license for.
Are the licenses gonna get cheaper because
Like,
approved, I mean?
No, my impression is the licenses will be less expensive in communities that were highly impacted by existing pot laws. In other words, communities where, like the city, where there's already been a lot of people busted for it and so forth. There's a whole layer of new, I didn't write all that down, but there's a whole layer of new grants and so forth that are gonna go to communities. And they also had indicated that the licensing would be favored by people that were adversely impacted by what they consider adversely impacted by
So you bring up this,
the laws.
kind of brought up that, is there gonna be a limited number of licenses available on this? Just by kind of what you're saying, I kind of got a sense that this is gonna be geared more towards communities that were impacted by it, so does that mean?
Well, that was not made clear. The The law is 128 pages long. It creates, 4 new layers of state government. There's several layers of oversight. There's a state equity officer to equitably decide who gets the licenses. There's advisory boards, there's candidates management board, candidates control board. They weren't real specific just yet. This is all as the governor normally does, makes these announcements and details to follow. So the big news is that the law is passed, but they still have a lot of policies to put in place to make it work. They don't anticipate the first dispensary for at least a year. Anybody that applies for a license, if you do not opt out, anybody that applies for a license in the town, we are allowed to make a recommendation or express our opinion on the person applying or entity applying for the license. We don't know, they didn't know how much that would make sway, how much it's going to change anybody's mind, but we would at least supposedly have a response from them as to whether they took this into account, how much it was taken into account, if any, and what other aspects were involved in granting the license. So we would have some say, supposedly, now, I guess, an opinion.
But ultimately, it's up to the state.
Ultimately, it's up to the state and their review and so forth. There's a lot of different layers to it. The management end of it's supposed to review the applications, make recommendations, monitor the records, perform, and that's the other side of it. They would perform. There's no local oversight. It's all the cannabis management board. They will perform inspections. They will supposedly do the enforcement end of it, so that it would not fall to code enforcement, other than if we had it in our zoning regulations at the location, time, place, and so forth. Beyond that, the rest of it's going to be on the state. So there's going to be a very, very heavy state influence, but there's a lot of layers to it. That's why I didn't want to just say, okay, let's look at the opt-out, because maybe enough people in town want it. I don't know. I mean, I know an awful lot don't, but I know there may be some enough do. So, but the other side of it is, as Joel was saying, the licensing is very expensive. Is there going to be enough? I mean, for the 3% of the sales, and they didn't say whether, I assume it's gross. I don't know. They didn't say it was gross or not. So, but assume gross. We don't know that there's going to be much of any income from this. I mean, is it worth the aggravation and the possible problems that are involved in increasing to have this? So, for what little we're going to get, we don't know. Like I said, you can't just call the guy down the street and say, hey, what are you making in a year on this, so we can project whether it's worth it for us or not. So.
The other thing, though, that I thought was interesting is, so we can only regulate these, as best we can, these retail dispensaries and these on-site consumptions, but personal cultivation is completely off the table. Like, we can't dictate anything around that, except she did say, she was funny.
Yeah, she was very, very good. Yes, it was very good.
She was like, I swear I can take anything before this. But she said we can enact laws to reasonably regulate the actions or conduct of personal cultivation, and it could look like a registry or something to that sort. So I think that's another thing we should probably discuss at a zoning workshop at some point.
Yeah, that one I would want, yes, and it's worth discussing. That one, I did write that down too, the reasonably regulate actions and conduct. I guess because of the nature of it, who would do the enforcement of it? And would we want to get into having to enforce that? Because it's personal by nature.
Right.
and it will be on private property by nature. I'm not sure many people are gonna say, yeah, I'm gonna come in and sign up and be part of the registry first off. I just don't think that.
Is that in-home use, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah,
Like
personal use.
growth, we can't do, like, we can't.
21 and over, each person is allowed 3 ounces of cannabis. You can have 3 mature and 3 immature plants per person, no more than 12 plants per household. So, and home growth is only
Yeah,
allowed
thank
18 months after the opening of the first dispensary in the state. So the home growing thing, you're looking probably a year and a half down, 2 years down the road, really, because it's going to be probably a year before they open the first dispensary, and then 18 months after that, so 2.5 years down the road. You can't prohibit where it is if it's smoked or eaten or whatever. The only place you can prohibit it is where tobacco smoking is already regulated. So, like on town property or whatever. But people can literally, and this was brought up, literally walk down the sidewalk smoking a joint. So.
But not in their car.
I was just
But
gonna say,
not
the
in
only
our
place
car.
that you can smoke cigarettes where you can't smoke weed.
Well, but we can't regulate that one, so that's so yeah, there's a lot to it, so, but yeah, we can look at the home growing. I think they didn't say if there was, that's another thing that we don't know, if there's a time frame for where we have to regulate that as well as anything else, or if that can be dealt with on a separate law, then, I'm assuming it has to be from the opt-out, but. So it was very interesting, and she did a great job, and, the same thing with all the supervisors, whether they're yay or nay, there's an awful lot of unanswered questions yet to.
It was a very short, for 128 page, it was pretty short, it didn't get into specifics. Right.
No, she only did the parts that were
Very
related to
general,
the town,
broad,
because there's an awful lot of all this other, with all these other layers, I imagine. I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, how many different licenses were there?
Oh.
What did you say,
Cultivating,
10?
processing.
Yeah. 10 or something.
There's at least 7 different licenses you can get.
Cultivator, distributor, dispensary, processor, delivery, nursery, on-site consumption.
Plus
That's as far as I wrote.
Yeah, plus others that they listed.
medical aspect to it.
Well, that's a whole different thing. We don't have anything to do with the medical end of it, fortunately. And you can have multiple licenses too. So that was the other side of it. So anyhow, something to work on for coming up here. Next, talk to the state, maybe actually 2 meetings of the state, the dredging project for Salmon Creek is coming up. The READY program is sponsoring it. The engineering has been done. I printed out some of the reports. Some of them I just have electronically because they are huge because of the location. Environmental impact statements and so forth. I was reading through, there's species of animals and plants and fish and things that you have never heard of. I'm literally that are possibly living in this area, blah, blah, blah. Anyhow, with all that said, I agreed to help them they need 2 easements. I said we would write a letter because they figured it would be better to come from the town than just the state. They have a letter that would be included. Tentative schedule to start is late summer. We're looking at July 20th to begin dredging the waterway. So that's going to be done this summer.
How far up are they going?
Well, the initial printout I saw of the map looked to be to the bridge. This latest one shows it a little bit shorter of the bridge, but basically the mouth, all the way out. Obviously past up. One of the easements is for the yacht club because they're right there. And it's just because of the way the property lines are drawn, there's people own under the water and so forth, so.
Potentially affect any sewer construction.
Not at all.
When you say ready to something, does that mean grant money? Is this something you apply for? This is ready?
No, well, we had brought it up. Initially, this goes back quite a ways. The yacht club, when we first were going through this, I met with the yacht club, the Commodore, and he worked for Bella, and they had wanted to put this in under that Ready program. Unfortunately, at that time, because the yacht club was going to sponsor it, and because they owned under the water, it was not a municipally owned facility. We didn't own it, so we could. They had Ready had another section for privately owned stuff, but it was much smaller dollars. However, in the meetings that we had, there was several sites that were looking to be dredged because the wave action and so forth filled in the creeks. So the Ready itself took these projects and said, we are going to put a separate section together, I guess is the best way to put it, where it was all just the dredging marines. That was what they fell under. And they are doing it's run by the state because they figured they could get through the process faster just doing it themselves because these do involve heavy DEC involvement. Minimum, there's every other agency is involved too, but they figured they could navigate it better as a group and doing all of them. They've done, which I'm very glad. They split them in half. The number, I don't know how many total they were going to do. I think there's 9 or 10 probably out the creeks. Half was going to be done 1 year, half was going to be done the following year. This is the first year. Next year was supposed to be the second year, so I'm glad we ended up on the first year playing. So they are taking the lead. They are running the project. It falls under the Ready program. It's going to be bonded out. Well, I don't even know. It's Office of LGS, Office of General Services. So that's who's doing oversight. So we were involved in it initially, but because of the way it was, there was a lot of regulations and parameters put on these programs, so that it didn't fit with anything that was going forward for this town to sponsor, so they took it and ran with it, so, which is good. It's great. And we are on the first wave. So anyways, we had that meeting. I had Nicole today confirm the addresses, tax numbers, so that we can make sure that we get that turned around quickly and get that back to them as soon as they navigate the DEC regulations and the application process, which did very good, but it's a longer story. So the county meetings that we have are pretty much all vaccine all the time. We're telling everybody where they can go to get the vaccine, yada, yada. It's pretty much available. Obviously, if you listen to the news and the age, pretty much everybody that's of any kind of age can get the vaccine if they want it. You just got to navigate through trying to find a place to get it on one of the sites. For our side of town and down in here, I shouldn't probably say a whole lot about it, but Orleans County is a good bet for people from here to go there. It's open to everybody, and they've had a lot more openings over there. We attended the van opening. I'm sure Joel can talk a little bit more about that. I also put in a packet to just a draft of the employee responsibility section of the health emergency policy. I figured it's a policy, so here's the policy that's for the employees. Sign it, you read it, you got it, and we'll put it in their file instead of modifying the employee handbook. And then any new employee will get a copy of the policy and go forward with it from there. I don't know if I left anything out, if anybody sees anything glaring over, let me know before I commit to publishing. How many copies we gotta have for everybody, so. Let's see. That's all I have at this time. No, nothing new, we're moving along. Still going forward. We gotta do one more level of the archaeological dig or whatever, survey. Yeah, that. Still working through the engineering and so forth. Still on track for later this year. That's at this point. So let's, I guess we can do some reports. Councilperson Baxter.
Fire Hill, Palmer Fire District, they had 9 mutual aid calls given, where they went and helped other districts. They had 1 mutual aid received from Hamlin for a chimney fire. And they also had 1 call of significance for ice water rescue on Braddock's due to thin ice. Other than that, there's no word about one or the other, so that's still up in the air. Hamlin Volunteer Ambulance, they've been incredibly busy this March. They've been steadily busy since December of last year, and it's something that's basically the whole county is, going through. It's just not Hamlin; it's everywhere it's busy. So this March, they had 77 calls. So in retrospect, they had 51 last March. So they're already, 150%, above where they were. And year to date, they've already had 254 calls for ambulance, and we're only, just starting our 4th month. So, thank God they're here local as well. I guess I'll say on that. And as far as the conservation board, there wasn't a whole lot there. Just board reports were given pretty much. Steve wasn't there, so there's really nothing new from fishing and advisory. I did talk to County Legislator Smith about the fishing advisory board concerns that he had brought up. Did we ever get the link on our website yet or not?
You put that in.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think so.
Okay, I just
A
checked.
while ago.
Yeah, I figured as much, but better just find out. And pretty much we were going on the same path, so that was good. And free tree giveaway will be April 24th from 9 to 11 here in Town Hall parking lot. So, and the 2 referrals I did have were talked about at the previous meeting, so then they were consistent with the WRP. So, other than that, I'm done.
Thank you.
Zoning Board of Appeals. There was a public hearing for down at Beechwood Park. This couple has been in multiple meetings. There was somewhat of a publication error, I guess, in the publication for them, so the public hearing's held open until next month. That's for a shed. I think they're gonna need like 0 side setbacks, I'm not sure. With the publication, if there was, the setbacks are changing a little bit, due to the location or not, but, so that's, held open until this month. There was, Walker Road, a public hearing for an orchard type fence, that's continuing to next month, as well. And then public hearing for variances for the Sandy Creek Marina. The variance, multiple variances, parking was the biggest one, 40 spot variance for parking. Apparently it's gonna be more of a private club, all the boats will be less than 100 people to 30 feet in length. And then he needed the paving variance. So we should, know we mentioned it before, but we should look in our code when we do a zoning workshop again, put on the list about, certain restrictions we have on impervious surface that impedes drainage near water, such as this case here, so.
Might be something for the LWRP.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. But we would have to change our code, right? So he's only gonna be paving in the apron area. As we discussed earlier. There was a public hearing for a coastal erosion hazard area variance, for Shore Acres for someone who's raising his existing cottage in the same footprint. The variance is so that he doesn't have to move his cottage 25 feet landward of the natural protected feature area line. One public comment in favor, and that passed. And then he also needed the coastal erosion hazard area permit, not just the variance. The coastal erosion hazard area variance, but he also needed the permit, and that was granted. And then a public hearing was scheduled for a barn on Hamlin Center Road that needs some side and rear septic. The Chamber of Commerce. So I think they're just starting to get up and running, meeting again. I think next week is gonna be, right, the meeting. And they're gonna be sending along we never got the check for the dog shelter in the 2018 Apple Fest, so we still have that on hand. So they'll be sending that along. I talked to Dan Cubitt about that. And yes, next week they're having a meeting, and Anki, you joined the board apparently, and they're.
I was at the last meeting.
Yeah, so they're.
So you show up, you're on the board.
See what happens, yeah.
I'm glad that you joined, and they're excited to have you, just so you know. Just because I know you guys talked about partnering last year with doing the Apple Fest and the Spring Fest with kind of like an area-wide, event to draw more people and have more things spread out around multiple towns. So it looks like that's on track, hopefully, for this year.
We hope so, but nobody seems to know.
Yeah,
They
hard
announced that
to,
the Apple Fest is on. They did? Yeah,
yeah.
it's the first weekend in October. They've announced that they're putting it on, so.
They were, when we talked to him, he said, the plan is we're gonna plan it. We're
Yes.
gonna
I thought they were gonna wait though, right?
They
go
are.
ahead and plan.
They're planning, but it's not 100%. We're also planning, but it's not 100%.
Right. Which I think everyone's kind of in that state of, hopefully the show will go on, but, so most of their other fundraising events that they do, they're kind of just waiting to see if some of them are gonna go on, the Carnival in Hilton, don't know. They do their, that drive-in, the car drive-in, don't know. But, he did mention to me they're looking for, if anyone knows of anyone, somewhat of a webmaster, like somebody who can really kind of maintain their web page and kind of help them integrate a little bit better use of social media, Facebook, Twitter, those types of things to get their activities out a little bit more and kind of someone to maintain their website. And I know Mike Merrill, I was told, was kind of promoting all throughout COVID, all Hilton and Hamlin, and Parma businesses, restaurants and stuff that were still open during COVID, just to get the word out, to get some more support to these places. So I'm gonna reach out to him to see if he can, if I can just cross-post those, because we have, like Hamlin community pages. So, it's great that they're on the Hilton pages, but it would be, I think, really beneficial to also kind of get them on Hamlin.
He has him on his Facebook.
He does, okay. So that is pretty much it for the chamber. I had a couple other things. Patty Jo had sent, I don't know if you sent that email to everyone about the Hamlin history books. are gone. I guess they've all sold out, right? Correct.
Oh, yeah, so they're gone. And this was like a year ago when
Yeah,
I got that
saw-
quote.
I saw that quote and I was like, whoa, they've been gone a while. Okay, I didn't know. But, you guys are still getting interest, like people come in and want
A
to
handful.
purchase them?
I would say probably about 10, maybe at the most, since I've been here for a year and 4 months. So it's not big, but I mean, the last one recently called from Buffalo.
I think it'd be reasonable to pursue getting some more printed. The quote was not super cheap, but I didn't know whose budget that comes out of or what funds that would come out of to have them printed, because then you sell
Well,
them.
we had talked about that, and, obviously, history center, it's their one.
That's what I
That would be logical, although I did suggest the town clerk's budget. That would be very far, so.
I made all the same suggestions.
But, I haven't seen an actual quote, and we need to talk about numbers. Because the last book, I don't know how many they printed, but they had a long time going through the initial print. And then a lot of them sat for quite a while. We talked about that.
Yeah.
And, obviously it's worth having some here just because, you may, but you don't want to have 200 of them sitting here because 12 people wanted them and we had to get 500 of them and whatever.
And of course, the more you get, the cheaper they are
Sure.
per book.
So for 50, this quote, but I mean, this is from August of 2020, so who knows what it is now, but from then, it's for 50, it's $18.80 each for a total of $940.
And this is for the
That
soft
was the
cover.
soft cover, right?
Mhm.
When you sell them, you sell them for, you do a markup or we don't?
Oh, yeah, I think,
$20.
yeah, I know the hardcover years ago was
Yeah, wasn't it?
$20, $25.
For the hardcover.
Yeah, and then the soft cover was like $15.
So that's cheaper than,
Well, obviously, but that was,
Years ago.
I mean, Mary Smith wrote the book, she was still alive, so, yeah,
which is
She is.
yeah. But when we, sorry, I misspoke, but
I'm like,
she was
and
still, I meant to
is.
say that, still a historian is what I meant to say,
Okay.
sorry, I misspoke. But that's quite some time ago too, so.
So yeah, so maybe. getting
I'm
an
sure if I
updated
ask,
quote.
Ryan Printing, if they know how many he might know how many we ordered last time. I mean, he still had the
You may have to-
prints and everything, so.
And I don't know whether it's worth getting, that's another question, should it be soft covers or hard covers? It's,
Yeah, I don't know what they sold last time.
well, I've got a hardcover one, I know that much, but, if somebody's gonna buy them, are they gonna want it to be a soft cover book, or would they want it to be a coffee table book that they're gonna keep as a hardcover?
Okay, the hardcover.
Yeah, I mean,
Suggestion, one
So,
over the other, I'd go with the hardcover.
Yeah, I
I
got the
think it came up,
hardcover.
we
I have a
were
hardcover.
at the LWRP, we were talking about something, and we were like, oh, let's grab that book and look at it, 'cause it might
Right.
be in there, But okay, maybe do you mind getting a new fresh quote? And
No,
see
that's
if we
fine.
can get the hardcover. And then back to the website, so I don't know if we can work on the website a little bit at the LWRP meetings. A couple things have come up that aren't like digital or available on our website, like electronic copies of like the open space index and the comprehensive master plan. Like I think the Jocelyn Gavitt from Gavitt Associates, she's been kind of looking for some stuff and she can't find copies of it online readily and easily. So I don't know if there's like something, who would do that? Would it be DAS? Like, would they integrate that into our website?
Like an archive of all
Like, and, just things that, we have like our code book that's all electronic, but having those other documents
The scanner.
electronic too would be.
Scan, you host it, put a link to it.
right.
In the newsletter. The newsletter would be nice to be able to a link right on the homepage of the website. Because right now, a lot of people are telling, like, what, we have the newsletter that Patty Joe's putting out, which is 1 or 2 pages. It gives an overall of what's going on in the month ahead. And I've started now doing a newsletter, which is more comprehensive. It covers 2 months. I can send it out to the people in our registration system, which is a limited population of Hamlin residents. I have 1,600 email addresses from the people in our own registration system. But unfortunately, I found out that through Google, I can't send more than 500 emails per day for a 24-hour period. So with 1,600 addresses, and it even doesn't let me send 100 in a batch email. So how do I get that information to our residents? And the most obvious thing I can think of is a link right on our homepage, the town of Hamlin, says click this to download the PDF of our newsletter. And that doesn't seem to be possible for some reason. So that type of a link would also work with these things. We'll just click here and download, click here and download.
Right,
That's
like
what
I
we
was
need to do.
thinking too, like, we have all these COVID resource things coming out, like having a COVID tab with all the information about, vaccines or where to get them, and I watched that tenant and landlord, sat in on that. I think Jackie Smith sent us a link to that too, and so I watched that, and there's a lot of super useful information in there for tenants and landlords in town. I think the biggest take home from that would be if people need help paying their rent, this will go back a full year, and landlords can recoup a year's worth of costs, and tenants don't have to pay that. So like having that link of just like people can call 211. I think that's just important to know for tenants and landlords that, they can call 211 to get information about that or help filling out the application. So just having, a little bit more accessibility on the website, I think, would be helpful. So, I don't know if that's like EAS who we would have to talk to.
Because, you have the news, but then as you put new stuff up, it sort of falls down to the bottom.
That's the great thing about things as tabs, is if you have things tabbed, they're actually at the top of the side.
Yeah.
You click on that. It's like on my personal website for the boat club, you have monthly meetings, you have, your sign up sheet, and you just have all that, and then it takes you to that actual page, and everything is related to that. So like you say, like COVID, you have all the appointments, all the paperwork, whatnot for, like when we hit a flooding, you'd have like all your paperwork and whatnot. I imagine you have downloadable forms that people can print out. So under the bill inspector, you'd have a forms tab where you'd have all them, and you just click on links for like filling out your bill information.
You have links to those.
Yeah.
But if you tab it, it's easy.
Right, so maybe just a little reorganization.
Yeah, we can, we'll have to talk to them. Some of this, I'm sure, would be their, what they would have to do to rearrange the site, and some of it is probably just get it on there. I mean, there is a link for the rec department on there already.
There's a link, but there's not a way I can put that newsletter up there and make it easily keep it. People keep saying to me, I'm digging and I can't find it.
You don't have it on your site though, on the rec site?
No, because it links to our registration system.
Oh.
And like for the COVID site too, we got that correspondence from FEMA about funeral costs are, can be recouped from people who passed away from COVID. So I think that would be something that residents would definitely want to know for those who've been affected by it. And that's another thing I need to get up with, but LWRP public meeting is May 19th. We're going to have 2 sessions, 1 to 3 p.m. and 5 to 7. It's going to be at which? Shelter 3, I believe, right?
Pavilion 3.
Pavilion 3. That's a really good group. Kind of exciting the way that Jocelyn frames things. So the LWRP, we could I feel like we have to, provides a lot of benefits that we could take advantage of down the road, so this reworking of it, I think is really a good thing, and, we'll talk about, also at the public meeting, we'll have like stations, different stations, and one of those will be ideas for people to, you know, and she said, just come up with like your craziest idea, and for instance, someone threw out the idea of, yeah, like, you know, what would you want in town that we don't have? Someone's like a Ferris wheel, and, you know, we're all laughing, but it's like, you know,
Yeah.
imagine a Ferris wheel down by at Hamlin Beach State Park, or, you know, for everyone who's camping, I mean, it's you know,
Tyler could
absolutely
write-
love it,
He would have
so.
wrote that one
They
down.
used to have a merry-go-round across the street from my house back in the day, and the ice cream stand on the corner.
So, you know, just coming up with like some really, you know, thinking of things that you may think, oh, that's never attainable, and bringing it to, you know, a list for us to look at, because, you know, the LWRP could really, you know, there's a lot of grant money and stuff that you can go after if you designate the LWRP community.
It's great having Chris attached, because he just,
Yeah.
and that's one smart dude. If he didn't know so much about that, you know, the last time he did,
Right.
you know, he's been as well as that.
So it's kind of a fun meeting.
Yeah, it is fun. You learn a lot.
And then lastly, they did a virtual training on renewable energy and agriculture. It was put on by Cornell Cooperative Extension from Broome County, but they had sent us an email for it. And it was really interesting, but the only couple of things that I had a question about was they reviewed about having road preservation local laws, or road use agreements for like solar, commercial solar and stuff that we have going on. And I don't think we incorporated that into like our solar plan. So, you know, all the wear and tear that happens to the roads, you can incorporate something into your agreements, but that you could get reimbursed for that, and even for like adjacent towns. So if Clarkson has a big project going on, but they have to go through Hamlin to use some of our roads to get to the project, that would also be covered under those like road laws, those road preservation local laws. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And, you know, by 2040, kind of made it a little more real that by 2040, New York State's supposed to be 100% clean energy, which is only 19 years away. So it's kind of a scary thought. 19 years, not very far away. And, you know, they said rural areas will really bear the brunt of making a lot of that happen. So.
Okay, so for the library, they're on extended hours, which also includes Saturdays. So in 1 month, they jumped up to like 351 people are going to the library. That's pretty interesting. A lot more people are trying to get out. They're working on their summer reading program. So hoping that's going to happen. We're also doing some work with some forest farms to do some kind of program just to get people out of the house and trying to get them back into some kind of activities again. They just recently put out their annual report. The LWRP dog shelter, the rabies clinic is now May 14th, right here at the town hall from 5:30 to 7:30. David is also doing duty now at Parma. The dog control officer there had a knee replacement, so he's helping out over there. Most of the calls seem to be for dog fights. I think it's pretty interesting with certain dog breeds. I won't name them. But there's many of those dogs like in this area now, so there are some issues around that. The medical van, if you read the paper, this is the mobile treatment units. As we're legalizing marijuana, we figured we might as well put a treatment center. This is actually a treatment center on wheels. That's what we're treating the Western district. So we actually house it at Steve's place, the superintendent's building. But it's sort of Hamlin, Parma, Rockport, Sweden, Also, maybe the SUNY system, we have permission about there, Hilton. Also, we're gonna be over to the Hilton, and we're gonna go as far as one, town over for the Holly. We want an agreement over there. And it's gonna provide, drug and alcohol treatment for people out here, so they don't have to live in the city, they can actually get medically assisted therapies right on the van. If your uncle, or George, or Bob, or whatever, you think he has a problem, and never can get him any help, we have people that can see him on site, do an evaluation, see a doctor, through telehealth, talk to one of our peers, see a nurse. They can get all their treatment right off this medical unit. It came from a grant from the state. When we wrote it, and Jackie Smith was very instrumental in trying to getting the towns together. So we have a place to park it. It's going to be out of town every single day. I go for a half a day, so it might be here on Mondays, like from 9 to 12, go to Hilton from 12 to 4, or whatever. But it's going to be consistent at that same day every day, or during the week. So it's pretty exciting.
So how does it work? So when it's parked somewhere, people can come up to the van, but then it's
Yeah.
also mobile going to people's homes?
When we don't go to people's homes, we just we go to designated areas.
Okay.
So what happens, I'll give you an example. Let's say the judge wants to have someone get an evaluation. Well, he can say, well, they're over here, they're here in the parking lot on Tuesday mornings from, such and such a time. We'll even try to help them get insurance if they don't have insurance, and they can get evaluated right there. And then from that point, if they think they need additional help, we'll set that all up. Or it could be families bring people over. If you just want, we have people that will just talk to you if you think like your neighbor or someone has a problem. Or if the ambulance people do a Narcan somebody, they can just give them a card and say, hey, listen, I want you to remember, after you get up, remember what's going on. They're at Hilton, let's say, on Tuesdays, or they're in Parma on Wednesdays. So everybody's going to get literature, like the courthouses will, the town halls will, the rec centers will. The sheriff is going to be part of it, the ambulance services, or anybody in first responding categories when they go to a scene will have material about it and a schedule on when we're going to be in different areas. We're going to get it out as much as we can.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for Steve for being recipient, or he actually keeps it together. There's that's all I got. Councilperson Hope.
Hamlin, Morton, Walker District, I don't have too much to report, but one of the questions I had that goes in response to the town website, if we could perhaps post their fundraisers on our website also.
I would love for anybody that's, the fire departments to give me their info.
Okay.
If I happen to see it on Facebook, I'll put it on. But if they know it's coming, let me know. I'll put it on the calendar.
All right.
Yeah.
They've applied for their CARES paperwork that's been filed. That's really about it for that. Planning board, the Sandy Creek Marina, they were in front of the planning board again, and there's been a issue with his site plan and the way it's been done with the engineers. So there's quite a lot of talk with him, and they denied the application without prejudice, and he's gonna look for a new engineer to get a lot more detail so they can satisfy everything that the planning board is asking for as far as what phases and how he wants to do things, and make it a lot more detailed really of what they need to hear from him. So that's been kind of postponed on the back burner. And there's a special use permit. There's a public hearing scheduled for May 3rd for 408 Drake Road. That was a house that is in the process of being sold. There was a single apartment with no special use permit back whenever. And so now they want to get that on the up and up. they would like an in-law apartment there. So they're just trying, they issued a public hearing so that they can take care of the special use permit before they buy the house. They want to know, it's kind of contingent on them buying the house. So he scheduled a public hearing for that. There's a conservation corridor development permit for 6394 to raise the cottage and add a porch to the cottage, and that was approved. And there's been amended site plan for 6992 Benedict Beach Road. There was a site plan there, and they made some changes, but there were no major changes. So they approved that as an amended site plan. And then in the discussion, we had talked about the battery storage issue, and JP, he suggested that their office can do a training session when we're looking at solar battery storage. He'd be happy to kind of put together a presentation, I guess, and maybe explain that a little bit more to us as we're looking into the battery storage issue in our zone law. So it's something that they're dealing with other towns, so they're kind of right in the middle of it. And, you know, if they got a little bit more information than what we have, so we'd be happy to do that. And then town court, I've got 2 estimates on the furnace. I'm waiting for a third. He said he emailed it to me, but I never received it, so I'm waiting for that. And then I've talked to DDS. It's been over a year since I got a quote for them to run a gas line, and he's going to redo that. And as we were talking about the furnace, everybody that's looked at it said the furnace is pretty outdated. Questionable if we can get parts if it does go down. And then even at the very least, if we could get DDS to at least run a gas line over there, so that if we have an issue, it's ready to go. And I talked to the guy from DDS about that. And they don't like to run a service over unless there is an appliance.
Right.
So he was going to check, being a municipality, if that was something they could kind of overlook. And I haven't heard back from him on that yet. So that's in progress here. And that's all I got.
Thank you. Highway Superintendent Bass.
Well, we've been busy with the ash trees. It's been taking those down mostly, fixing the ground afterwards. Today was nothing but going around and dealing with water issues. I culverts plugged with leaves because people didn't, actually all sat in their ditches all winter long, and now we plug up culverts. And the only other thing is we got a notice from the Association of Towns, New York State Association of Towns, that the CHIPS budget came out, and Hamlin will be getting 34,000 plus extra dollars into our CHIPS. So I'm gonna wait until I actually see the state form that says that. But then I'll probably come before the board next to increase the amount of money in our roadwork budget, since we're getting that extra money from the state this year, so that we can fix more roads this year. But that will probably be next meeting. I'm not gonna ask for it now until I get the actual state paper saying, yep, this is the budget, and that's it.
Great, thank you. Code enforcement?
Okay, we issued 30 permits in the past month, which is good because we were only doing like 11, so things are picking up. We received almost $1,800 cost received, 13 CFCs and special use permits were closed. 301 calls into the office. Phone's been ringing off the hook.
Nice weather, yeah.
Yeah, and 13 violation notices went out, and I'm still working on webinar training for the 24 hours in service training, and that's about it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Recreation.
Okay. We got a grant for $2,000 from the ESL Credit Union. This is not something I applied for. This is just something they send out to childcare facilities. So that was a nice bonus. So again, about the digital newsletter, I already explained earlier what our big challenges. one of the things I looked into was an email sending service that said that charges you according to how many email addresses you have. And for 1,600 email addresses, which are the email addresses from that we harvested manually from our old registration system, it cost us $45 a month to use that service, which I don't think is worth it to send a newsletter once every 2 months. So it costs $90.
Do you
basically,
have
to
those
send it.
actual emails and names?
I don't, yes. I
You
have the
can get
email
that?
addresses. I have the actual email addresses, yes.
Could we add them to our website email list?
If there's a way, yeah, that's one way of doing it.
Right, you send
But your newsletter is much shorter.
No, I mean, if you give me the format, then it can go out as, a rec
Yeah,
newsletter.
yeah, I can give you those email addresses. But then you're gonna have to manually plug them
Oh,
in.
no, I bring you over. And have you do it.
Because this was a project I had staff working on for quite some time in the office, to actually, because there was no way to do it. They were literally copy pasting it from one to the other because there was no way to get it out there. You couldn't even download it. They had it very, there was no way. It belonged to the old system. So I took the time and saved them all because how else would they get them back again? So I have them now in an Excel file. So I can send you the Excel file. But getting them onto the website will again have to be a manual procedure. Copy paste.
That's
So
an
there's a
option.
way to do it.
That's an option.
Yeah. So yeah, we should work on that because that way I think we might just stay with digital newsletters moving forward. The more people we can get on this list and we can send these newsletters to, then the less need there will be for that paper version that we used to spend. I think it was $2,500 on with every issue, something like that. So it's worth looking into. As far as our team goes, we've got all girls soccer teams on every level, which is great. We got a team, one at least for every level. Sweden Clarkson is sending down their players. They didn't get quite as many as we did. Baseball, not so good as far as the older teams are concerned. We have no majors team, no pony team, no softball, but we have a whole slew of little people coming into the fold. Tiny tots and tots are packed, absolutely packed. Juniors, we got the team together again with some more from Sweden Clarkson, and the minors team as well with some more from Sweden Clarkson. So we're doing good as far as they're concerned. As far as summer camp, we're working that, it's a work in progress right now, setting that up. There's still a lot of regulations I have not heard about yet, insofar as group sizes or any other guideline changes from last year, how any of that would be different. So just like our festivals that we are planning for, I'm planning for summer camp to be slightly different than last year, but I'm not expecting it. So I have my fallback of just doing it the way we did last year. This year we do have on staff a lifeguard that I made sure he got recertified now. So at least if we can't take the kids on field trips, we can take them to the beach on Fridays because we have our own lifeguard on staff, which is a requirement. And all he does literally every 15 minutes is take a head count. That's all our lifeguard has to do. But that's what we need to do according to the health department, is have a lifeguard on staff. Concession stand will likely not open this year. The reason for that is because if we only have girls teams and baseball teams, which both are on the fields only Tuesdays and Thursdays, it means that I have nobody on the fields Mondays and Wednesdays. So opening the concession stand for 2 nights a week, I doubt it will even cover our costs. And I would also, if I do open it, have to bring in another staff to cover all the positions that I have as of end of May through the end of July, which be the daycare, the concession stand, and the field staff. So rather than getting in another person who I would then have a difficult time getting enough hours for throughout the summer, because if that group is less than 15, I'm not going to leave a lot of staff. It would be better if I went down to the fields and helped out when we needed field staff rather than sitting in the concession stand. So that's the trouble with the concession stand, only 2 nights a week, where we have a lot of people in the park. And then the staffing for that. So that's the way I'm seeing it now. Porta potties will probably go out by mid-May all over the park, as we have usually have them. No change there. We'll see how long they last, insofar as our issues that we always have every summer. And Chamber of Commerce, I attended. I did not know that they think I'm a member of the board now. I just was really curious to find out what's going on with the Apple Fest, so we know how to plan our own festivals. But I'll show up more, but I don't really want to be a member of the board. Yeah.
I thought that's what Dan said, maybe I misheard.
Yeah, well, I don't.
Maybe it just meant you're joining the group in general and you're coming to the group in general.
Well, I would know. No, I just want to know what we need to be doing, so I felt this was the best resource, since we do want to do it together and advertise it together, so if they're gonna make it happen, and we can make ours happen, so that was the best way to get to that source. I'll be happy to attend again, but my prime concern is really how we can run our own festivals. Yeah. So, is there any questions about anything I said? No? Okay, that's it.
Town clerk?
We're getting ready for the rabies clinic. There was a change in date, so we scrambled and got ready. Been pretty busy today just getting appointments for that. I think it'll work much better here with the drive-through and that nice long drive through the park for the cars to back up on.
Are you advertising?
We will be. I just put in the ad for brush and spring cleanup. So probably next week I'll have the flyer ready to put in for the rabies clinic and run that ad for a couple of weeks. We're sort of planning a cruise in July 31st with the junk jamboree, very small. I get a lot of calls about people wanting to do a cruise in kind of car show thing. We want to keep it low key, spread out. So we're going to try something July 31st with the junk jamboree here for that. We'll see how it goes. Thursday, Jackie Smith has gathered all the local town clerks for a press conference at the Henrietta DMV to push the issue of getting the mobile DMV units back to the towns, because it's such a great need. I mean, I get phone calls here, and we never even had the mobile unit here. So that'll be on Thursday at 11 o'clock in Henrietta. So we'll push that a little bit. And then in a couple of weeks, I have the town clerks association conference. It's all virtual, so I'll be sitting in front of the computer probably 3 days in a row, like that. But that's about it. We'll work on that website stuff.
Yeah.
It's a little clunky, but I think we can fix some things in it.
All right, well.
All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carries. See what I said earlier? Oh, the agenda's real short, it'll be quick. Never get your hopes up.
Okay, take them back downstairs.
Good night, everybody. Good night.
No. Yeah.
They'll go there.
So back
Stay away.
where the rest of it, yeah, all that's left is like, I think the bar area, the one that you bring something, a whole other piece. And you take and you look, and you look out over the gate, it's gone. Huh. Well, I don't think it is right. Well, that's the other thing, well, I don't think it's right. That might have gotten
Right,
too,
Anthony, you walk out the parking lot this morning.
hey.
All right, and then you said that